This is Boxing Tickets NI in association with SB Sports. We're delighted to be joined by the magnificent Conor Quinn once again. Obviously, there's an interview just went out this morning from one of his stablemates, and he said we need to do another interview, but we'll sort of get on to that obviously in a minute or two. We don't want to go too early, too soon, and obviously giving one of his gym mates grief. Obviously, I guess we'll get him a bit of catch up since, but the last time we obviously spoke, probably it was weird for me in a way because obviously the SSE was a rowdy occasion. When the interview comes across, it sounds like there's nobody in the venue, but obviously there's quite a noise and I couldn't really sort of make out what you were saying. You probably normally can't make out what I say anyhow, but obviously going back, obviously the SSE, I think when we sort of look back on that fight, you know, probably some of it's going under the radar, but the fact that this guy was a former European champion. You obviously get a ranking now in Europe as well, although you're ranked at bantamweight. But obviously, I guess with time, with anything, that win's getting better and better. Hurstarova, what his name was, obviously gave you a really good fight. And I guess at times probably people would have seen you standing off sort of in the fight, and probably the last couple of rounds you sort of started to go to work again. Were you building that sort of experience in the fight? Do you know what, when you're getting that pressure from an opponent, that you can sort of cope with it in a certain way?
Yeah, definitely. No, it was a real good fight, tough opponent. He had never been stopped, and I think from the first bell, I landed a couple of shots first round. He buckled a couple of times, and I thought, right, I'll sort of judge from here if he takes a step back or if he comes back strong, and he came back after every attack strong. So it was just sort of me sort of thinking, like, instead of blowing myself out here, it's my first real tough test in about 5 years. First guy that's really in there to try and take my head off as I'm trying to take his head off. And he took some big shots, took them well, and watching it back, you see opportunities where maybe I'd hurt him more than I thought. He could have stepped on a wee bit more or whatever, but I was glad to get the tough 8 rounds in. Like that guy there, a former European champion, just recently drew with Angel Moreno of Spain, who was a former world title challenger, against Charlie Edwards. And to be honest, he should have won the fight. I watched the fight and I actually gave him it by a load of rounds. He was unlucky against the French guy in the IBO international fight. That guy won the IBO world title the next fight. So I knew what sort of level he was coming into the fight, and I'm just glad to get in there and sort of be able to mix it at that level and come out on top and sort of know now what's expected of me in them sort of fights when you have these real tough, sort of strong flyweights coming at you, or super flyweights, whatever they are. And he was real small and compact, so he was tucking up well, he knew how to sit in, and it was just good to sort of have someone there that I'm hitting them clean in the chin and they're still coming back rather than just rolling over.
It's sort of showing maturity nearly in a way. Obviously, I know you've had 7 obviously fights as a pro so far, but it's sort of showing that maturity, the fact that you're maybe looking for your hands as well, because obviously a strong, durable European opponent that hasn't been stopped like that, I guess the fear you'd have, they obviously start doing damage to your hands. So sort of maybe was it in a way for you, was a maturity beyond your years to go, doesn't look like I'm going to stop this guy, so I'm not going to go full guns blazing at him, because if you damage your hands, as we've seen, Paddy's damaged his hands, Ando Kukachi's damaged their hands, and after every fight then they're having to take a break to relax them. So in some ways was it sort of maturity for you to know, I haven't went all guns blazing here to try and stop this guy and end up doing yourself more damage. You've had your time out of the ring. Yeah. You've watched everybody else preparing for fights. You don't want to be sitting on the sidelines again with bad hands, because obviously once your hands go bad, unless you got operations, they're going to cripple you for the rest of your career.
Yeah, that's it, definitely. And I've already had plenty of hand operations anyway, but it's also just, I always give respect to these guys. Like, you can go in there thinking, everyone I hit's going to go down, and I genuinely believe anyone I hit clean, they are going to go down and they're going to be hurt. But it's also known that I haven't stepped up to that level yet. Obviously I have now with that fight, but before that fight I hadn't. And even now, since I've been back sparring since that fight, I feel like I'm levels above what I was before that already, just with being in with someone of that experience and that sort of calibre. So you have to give these guys the respect. Like, don't get me wrong, I was always fairly confident I'm going to win them fights, as I should, but it does sort of catapult you in a way, because you can't really go to that next level until you've been there and done it. And although obviously I'm only not even a year into my professional career since I've come home, and obviously all the other issues that I've had, but I'm just glad that I've got that experience already, because I feel like anyone else sort of sitting around 4 or 5 fights, sort of then they're still in this sort of position where they're getting in against these guys and they're having tough fights against maybe sort of prospect level journeymen, and obviously they're winning the fights, but they're making it sort of, which I feel like now that sort of catapulted me a couple of levels above, and now I can sort of bring it back down to where I probably should be at this stage of my career, knowing that when it is time to step up again, I'm ready to make that jump, no problem.
I guess sort of does the Heristova fight sort of make up for obviously the only sort of blemish in your career being the draw, which obviously wasn't a draw, but does that sort of make up for it now where even though I've just mentioned that you probably already forgot it, that you're not remembering that draw now, you're just remembering this is your positive moments, this is where you're sort of moving forward, so you can sort of get over that now finally where that draw happened, in your own head it wasn't a draw, it was a win for you. But you've looked past that now because you've had a bigger moment since. You've obviously defeated a European champion and everything else. So do you now put that to bed? Obviously you're still unbeaten, I guess that's a good thing as well. And I know that you've had moments since where you're going, this is crap, blah, blah, blah. But do you now forget that and start moving yourself forward as the progress as keeps building?
Yeah, definitely. Like, obviously now, like you said, I just want to be the European champion. That initially was going to be for some sort of belt, a continental belt or a European belt, and obviously if that had come off, I would be miles ahead now of thinking about the blemishes. But listen, the way I look at it more is I just want to keep progressing, keep improving, keep winning, and at the end of the day, like I says, I'm only not even a year back in my career. We're sitting here now already talking about these sort of rankings, these sort of fights, these sort of titles. Like, I'll be honest with you, I'm under no illusions I'll be a retired fighter in years to come with a perfect record, because if I have done that, then I feel like I've sort of held myself back, because my ambitions, my goals is to become a world champion in different weight divisions, and by doing that, that's not to say that you're never going to take a loss or you're never going to have these really bad decisions, because I want to challenge myself. If I was on a world title tomorrow, I want to unify, you know what I mean? If I was to do that, I dispute it the week after that, and obviously now I'm building up all the experience, getting the rounds and trying to progress myself into different levels so I can go on and go on and go on. But once I do get to that level, I know I will get to I will keep trying to challenge myself, keep trying to take all my skills, get better, beautiful and stuff like that. And be able to try and go for everything you want before I sit here and the best things in sliced bread. On the record as well, but you can retire knowing you got your all and you fought the best, you beat the best, you won the belts, and you made a few quid out of it as well.
Obviously, off the back end of the SSE, you were supposed to obviously fight on last week's Murphy Gainer 2 rematch. What obviously happened? Did you have obviously an injury in the build-up? Obviously, from the Heristova fight, obviously I know you had a breakaway with the missus. Always seems to be, is this your reward now? Obviously after a fight you go away and have a wee holiday. Is this your sort of reward for the hard work you're putting into the gym? I guess after so long out, you have to give yourself them rewards so it keeps bouncing. But what sort of happened between sort of the SSE and the Europa? Did you have a sort of injury that was obviously rolling you out for?
Yeah, no, it was actually just the final week of training for the fight in the SSE. I sort of went over my ankle. Thought maybe it was worse than it was at the time. Give it a couple of days rest. Wasn't too bad. Was able to get in and fight, obviously, thankfully, because I wouldn't have wanted to miss that opportunity. But then just through that, letting it settle after then and coming back in the training and stuff, it was just niggling, and I knew then that if I kept pushing it, I would have put myself out for even longer. So we all sat down and we made the decision then. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to box on the show last week, which I was gutted about, to be honest, because I'm the type of guy I want to fight in every show. I don't care to be a box fight in Belfast or anything mentioned, that sort of momentum now. Any shows that are being announced, I'm getting people texting me, people stopping me in the street, people asking for tickets just assuming I'm on it, and I love that, that's what I want, because you want to keep the momentum going while you're relevant, you want to stay relevant, you want to keep it moving. I was absolutely gutted I wasn't boxing at the weekend, especially when I'm trying to see the show, and especially because of the show as well.
Obviously, it was good. Obviously, in the fact that like I don't know. I think over time we're probably going to realise probably how special Colin was. As I was saying to Paddy, obviously last night in an interview as well. It's over 2 years ago when you look at Colin Murphy, obviously fighting JP Hale and obviously the Ulster Hall, he didn't have a defence. He used his head as a defence, and now do you see where he's at? Like he's 8-0, he's won the Celtic belt, he's defended it, he's now won the Irish belt inside 8 fights, and it just, and I know I sort of give D praise in the interview, but you have to give D praise for that, but also you have to give yourself, Jared, Owen, Paddy, Lee Reeves, everybody else that obviously pat on the back as well, because it's a real unity sort of have in the gym, and that's bringing probably the best out in Murph. We all know Murph's eccentric, he's mad, you give him a coffee and you don't know where he's going to be 10 minutes later. But obviously for him, particularly from what he came through last week as well, like they cut probably, I don't know, and where it was at the side of the head and the blood was sort of running wide, as a 23-year-old kid, it's still coming up and seeing that blood in your face. The only right thing you're going to do is, how bad is this? If I get a big hole in my head, is my brain going to come out? Yeah. But he probably boxed his best he boxed. Yeah. Like less than a minute after that, he dropped Gainer. It's crazy. But for you, sort of watching last week, I guess it is added to the boxes. You hit your knuckles. You wanted to be in there and you wanted to be fighting. But I guess you can't be more proud than these stable boys all hitting up at once.
Yeah, definitely. Like you see us in there yourself, Morty. Every day we're challenging ourselves. Like. We're all the best of friends, but when it's time to get in the ring and spar, it's go time. You know what I mean? Like, and we're all there pushing each other on. We're trying to take each other's heads off, and if we do land a good shot, we'll let the other one know, and we're sort of showboating and stuff like that. But then we get out again and we talk to each other and we try and bring each other on. What could you work on there? What could I work on? And that's why it's working so well. And, obviously the 3 lads were brilliant. Jared, Owen, brilliant wins, and then obviously Murph in the main event. And like you says there, like 23-year-old kid, and then that cut and stuff, like people probably don't understand how good of a win that is. And like even to make them step ups where he has stepped up already, and the division stacked. Obviously, like myself, you have to make step ups because there's not many people around, but Murph didn't have to make them step ups, and he stepped up. He's fought Gainer twice now, and in my opinion he's probably lost 1 round in 2 fights. I know people are talking and saying this and that and whatever, but I think it's been masterclasses from Murph. The first fight, I thought he was brilliant. There was a head clash again, closed his eye over. Maybe people from the outside looking in think that's a close fight because he's damaged eye. My opinion, it's not a close fight. He won the fight well, he was brilliant. Second fight he was even better. Obviously got another head clash, blood gushing out of his head in the second round. Anyone that doesn't really understand how sort of off-putting that could be in a fight, just imagine all you can see is red and you can't see out of your eyes. You can feel the blood, you think it's sweat and it's blood. Someone there is getting a bit of confidence thinking that you're hurt, trying to take your head off, and he comes back and drops him, so I just think it was brilliant. I think it just topped off a brilliant show as well. Great show, only 4 fights. People are probably looking going, how can that be going ahead? Mark does it every time. It's always a brilliant show. What a night of boxing. And Murph finished it all off with a bit of blood and guts, and obviously showed the heart and also the boxing ability. And I think again, punch perfect. I think 2 scorecards had us 49-45. Probably what I would have had it, if not a shutout. Another judge had it real close. I don't know where that comes from, but I just think now it's time for Murph to move on now, and he's put that to bed for whatever reason. People thought the first fight was close. You definitely can't argue with that second one. He was brilliant.
I think obviously it's going to hurt him now that obviously I know the doctor said afterwards he sort of can't spar for 2 months. It'll probably still not keep him out of the gym. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he secretly went and done a marathon. Obviously that's how crazy he is. Obviously he's got that adrenaline he needs to get rid of now that, even though he's not allowed in the gym to spar and things like that, he'll be out doing something, But I guess that's the nature of it, and I guess that just goes to show you how great this gym is. At the fact that even when obviously you can't do things in the right way, you'll still be there to help others. Obviously your stablemate Jared was obviously supposed to fight Rudy Farrell, obviously for the Celtic belt in the same show now as you on the Fela, and for whatever reason, obviously that fight's now not going ahead, whether it's because he's just become a dad and he doesn't have the time to do it. But that just goes to show you that if you're going to offer an opponent out from D. Walsh's gym, I admit that they're going to say yes, because you're trained killers pretty much in the way that the fact you're ready for someone to offer you out for opportunities. And you know, it could be taking a bad betting man to obviously bet against the D. Walsh fighter.
Yeah, that's it. Obviously that fight's now not happening. Listen, I don't know what goes on obviously in the background with fighters, but I think personally at the level that these sort of fights are, I think you're better off just keeping yourself to yourself, doing the work in the gym. Whatever fights come your way, accept them, fight. If you don't want to accept them, that's no problem, but I don't think anyone needs to be sort of going out and writing these things on Facebook, or seen a couple of comments under some articles about George's fights and stuff. Like, it's one thing to respectfully call someone out and say you want to fight, that's okay, but honestly, I just don't get it. I think we're all on the same sort of path. We're all trying to rack up a couple of wins, make a few quid, win a few belts and push on. If your way of doing that is by trying to drag other people down, then you have to step in and fight too. Do you know what I mean? And that's not just on Rudy, that's on anyone that's sort of out there trying to call people out, and maybe 4 or 5 fights in, you're saying, right, you're calling these guys out, no problem, but you need to understand you're calling these guys out. The money's not going to be great because it's at a lower level. Then you can go and say, oh, you want more money for these. You're not going to get money for these fights. Do you know what I mean? So in my opinion, if you're out there calling people out, you better be prepared to fight them the next day for nothing. Do you know what I mean? And that's the way I would look at it. Obviously it's great to have domestic dust-ups and stuff like that, but sometimes the best domestic fights come through respect and admiration for your opponent and just getting the job done, just saying, right, I'll speak to my manager, you speak to yours, we'll get it over the line, we'll announce it. You don't need to go and do this and that and say this and that.
Well, I was going to say there, when you say that, obviously respectfully, you look at Murphy and Gaynor, both fights, you look at Morrissey and Cronin, you know, probably, you know, there's 4 fights there, not one bit of bad blood in either of them, and all 4 great fights, so you don't need to have the bad blood to sell it.
Exactly, do you know, and especially even for the likes of Jared, like Jared's what, 3-0 now? That was only supposed to be a 4-rounder. He bumped it up to 6, obviously, because he wanted to be eligible for an 8-rounder for the field. But it's like, these guys, they deserve a bit of time to learn on the craft as well. You know, obviously, if Jordan Rudy were to fight, that would be brilliant for everyone to watch. But it's then where do they go from there? Do you know what I mean? So I think now it's time for Jordan now to get the head down. He's obviously still fighting on the show. Win this fight, no harm in getting an extra couple of rounds in, and then take it from there.
Yeah, definitely obviously helps the progress. For you, it's going to be your 6th fight, and I know I said it to you last night, your 6th fight in 11 months. You obviously said you fight nearly every other week, but for you, obviously, I guess, you know, you've obviously, you missed out in the show last week, or this could potentially be your 7th.
Yeah.
For you, obviously, this is still, you're pretty much saying like this is your first year back, you know, because you had your 2 fights in Australia, 2 wins, 2 stoppages, but you're sort of relearning. I think, and what Mark said obviously after the SSE as well, is this will be your last one before a title fight. You know, so for you, obviously going to Falls Park, it's another opportunity for you to show everybody what you're all about. But the next thing for you then afterwards, and what Mark said, and obviously I know he hasn't said it in an interview with me, but he said your next fight afterwards is going to be for a title. So do you just have to keep focused on the field and not get too caught up in the occasion and everything else? Worry about getting the job done as you normally do, and then you know it's not going to be too much longer before you put the belt around your waist.
Yeah, that's it. But listen, at the end of the day, I'm a fighter, and you tell me I'm fighting, so I'm delighted. You know, Falls Park, I says, whenever I turn professional, I says that the 2 dream locations for me to fight would be the Falls Park and the SSE Arena. I've done the SSE twice, and I'm going to do the Falls Park.
All within a year too?
All within a year. So, listen, and then another thing on that is, and Mark Dunlop's my manager, so he's not actually the guy running these shows, so it just shows how good of a job he's doing, able to get me them opportunities, and I've also held at my own show in the Europa. So listen, I'm very happy with the way things are going. Obviously I want belts, everyone wants belts, but at the end of the day I just want fights too, so get the job done here in the field. Obviously Mark's always on the lookout for different titles, different opportunities for me. We'll see what comes up. I think I'll be ready for anything at that stage. Again, without trying to get too far ahead of myself, because I understand as well, you know, like I'm a new kid on the block. Maybe some of the guys in my division that have the belts would be looking at me and say, why would I take that risk to fight this guy? He hasn't done his apprenticeship, whatever. But I think one more fight, then start off winning a couple of titles. I don't know what belt be out there, and then start to sort of build my way up, then start to go for the major titles as well.
I guess obviously finally then obviously on the ticket front, I guess with obviously Paddy and the others been announced a couple of weeks, the tickets already been out with Ticketmaster. It may be a bit tougher for you obviously selling tickets, but obviously you've been given your own allocation of tickets, so you have tickets to sell obviously rather than people going to Ticketmaster and spending on booking fees and service charge and everything else. You have tickets. Obviously I know that I warned you up a little bit with Katie Taylor and stuff saying you have tickets. Yeah. With me putting this out here knows that by me somebody's looking at tickets and me tagging you know it's genuine, but you have tickets for the Fela if everybody wants hard copies rather than paying extra on Ticketmaster.
Yeah, definitely. See, the issue is I didn't think I was on the show. A lot of people that already buy tickets off me had already asked me, and I told them I wasn't. Told them to go elsewhere and get them. They've already went and done that, so unfortunately I've already probably sold a lot of tickets, but not for myself. So I have obviously my allocation then. Anyone that hasn't bought them already, I'll have them there for them. You know, like it's how we get by obviously, and thankfully I've got a great support, and I always sell a good load of tickets. And it's not even about the actual ticket sales, it's about the people there calling your name, they're getting into the ring, do you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, for everyone buying the tickets, I wouldn't be able to get these opportunities, and I wouldn't be able to get the buzz that I get through fighting. So it's brilliant. Yeah.
What ticket prices do you have? Because obviously I know when Paddy initially, and we're just about to touch on the Paddy here in a second, so touch like well. But I know when Paddy initially done his order, he ordered too many of a 30s. And what sort of ticket prices do you have? Obviously I know because you've only been announced, sort of as market announced last night, not calling boxing. What tickets do you know that you can get?
I'm actually not too sure yet, but I think all the 30s are gone, so it'll be probably whatever's left.
50s upwards?
50s upwards. I don't think there's any 30s at all, so Paddy took all in.
We're obviously just come on to the reason now. Obviously I have an interview tonight there with Paddy this morning. I've sort of let you see the bits that he's mentioned. Like, I thought these were friends again, and it probably down to me saying that I actually finally seen you buy food. I seen you buy your Mrs. McDonald's after the Europa show last week, and you were proud of the fact that you bought it. But obviously I mentioned to Paddy that I seen you buying food because he says you're tight, and obviously you say Paddy's tight, and Paddy's come out with comments saying that you've got obviously a ring in your head, you're under the thumb, and obviously that you're going to buy him his drinks for the Fela, you're on his undercard. What's obviously your remarks back to Paddy? Is this just a love-hate sort of thing where you fall out a week, he's a friend a week? Are you going to buy him a drinks for the Fela, or does he owe you drinks because you bought him for the last show?
Well, we'll start off by saying the McDonald's situation. You see me buying it outside the Europa. That was just simply because Mark obviously had run the show. He very kindly invited me and Jessica down, gave us our tickets and a 4-course meal, sorted us out for hotel room at night. So I thought, listen, £8 on a McDonald's, it's not too bad after a night like that. Obviously it was caught by you, so the words got about. But no, I don't know what the story is with Paddy. He's got announced, obviously he's headlining this show. He started to change a wee bit, you know, so we're not going into it too much, but he's got a wee bit. He's too big for me now, Morty, you know what I mean? We're friends, and he's getting on me again. But I would like to say he probably buy the drinks this time after the weigh-in, the recovery shakes and stuff.
What do you want? What's in the menu? Because he obviously said last night what drinks and stuff he wanted. What obviously for him to make a peace offering to you now? What do you need obviously after the weigh-in day for Full Park?
Jesus, whatever Pierce Tohill, my nutritionist, sends. But listen, I've seen all this now. It'll definitely be me banning them. Like I'm not under no illusions, but.
We know the Paddy doesn't have money. You know, like, look at his post the other day saying that he's above Caleb Plant on the rankings. He wishes a couple of pound behind him. And we both know Paddy's absolutely mint it. Tasha doesn't know he has money.
Couple of pound behind them. If he was a couple of pound behind Caleb Plant, he must have lost his wallet on the way to the gym. Do you know what I mean? That guy is absolutely loaded. But listen, I'm just glad to see him doing well for himself now. He's the main event, he's doing alright. Hopefully after now he sort of starts to bring himself back down to earth, starts to be friendly with me again then, and then we can continue then, you know. Listen, I'm just glad he's got me this opportunity on his undercard, and
I was just going to touch there. Obviously, I seen you and him sparring, and obviously, I wish I had the clips from it because the sparring was class. But is it going to get to the stage where you're going to have to have another gym war again? Obviously, are you going to have to give him another beating, or are we sort of letting him apologise first before you offer to give him another beating?
No, he can apologise all he wants. Listen, there's nothing personal in there. Anyone I get in that ring with getting the beating. So, but I'm sure he'll get his soon. He's not in the day now. He's at a wedding, supposedly. I just seen him up in the Devonshire, like. But listen, we'll see where it goes. After this, I'd say Paddy's gonna be flying bigger and better things, and I'm sure he'll have a lot more comments to say about me then. But we'll see.
Well, look, obviously, thank you for your time. Obviously, 25 minutes I've kept you here. I think I'm going to have to go out the back door here in the gym because I think Dee's going to definitely be dragging me in for a few rounds here. You don't want to train today, then we'll just, I don't know, is Paddy about? We'll see if he'll buy some breakfast.
No, he said he's at a wedding. I don't know, but listen, he wouldn't bad anyway.
Well, listen, thanks very much for your time. Well, obviously, we'll leave you for a couple of weeks now. Obviously, it's been a couple of weeks since we've had an interview, but I'm sure we'll obviously catch up in fight week for the fella. Obviously, enjoy your training today, and we'll catch up very soon.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Morty.